Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode here of Clouducation. Here with my good friend Daryl Hunter. Welcome aboard again, Daryl. And today we're going to do a little recap around Microsoft Ignite 2018 that just recently happened down in Orlando. Both Daryl and I were fortunate enough to attend and be a part of a lot of the discussions and such. So we'll hop right into it. One of the things we wanted to do as a quick recap as well is talk a little bit about some of the discussions we had in our AudioCodes booth, and something that Daryl and I certainly spent quite a bit of time in there, to say the least. But we had a lot of really good conversations, particularly around two different topics. One would be the C450 and the native Team device, and then also direct routing and what that looks like from a Teams integration, sort of bring your own trunk perspective. We've talked about that in the past. So with that, Daryl, if you don't mind, just kind of give us a little bit of a summary with the folks that you had discussions with around C450. Was it a hot hit, or what can you tell us?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, from a booth perspective, we intentionally placed the physical C450 devices on the edge of our booth. That way people could not have to crowd in the center. They could kind of see on the edge. And I'm really glad we did that, because we had a lot of interest in the C450, people wanting to play show and tell and touch the buttons and see what really worked compared to what we've been announcing. So I'm really thankful for all the people that showed up and actually put it through its paces, because it was a really valuable conversation. I know from Microsoft as well, they had some of our C450s in their booth. And so they were sending people over to us to answer more specific questions that they may not necessarily be able to answer at that perspective. So I think some of the big highlights, people are excited about it. They're looking forward to GA, being able to actually get their hands on them, not just from sample perspective, but actually in place at their organization. A number of partners that we've been working with in the last few months about what's happening have also been interested in getting some as well, because they have many customers that are asking them that maybe that maybe we weren't aware of at the time. So definitely very, very interesting conversation on the C450, and we're right there on the cusp of being able to release a really great product. Yeah.
No, it was definitely exciting, and I know we've talked about that in some past episodes of Clouducation, so certainly something I encourage everybody to, if you haven't, go back, listen to that native Teams episode of Clouducation. Some really good stuff there. Another topic that we've covered in the past is direct routing. No real major announcements per se at Ignite, but certainly something we had a lot of folks coming through into our booth. They joined a lot of sessions that the community put together specifically around direct routing. So certainly, if you have not, definitely go back to some of those YouTube recordings and some of those presentations that are posted on the Ignite, the My Ignite site around direct routing. A lot of good things there, but some things to look forward to. Looks like media bypass is coming along nicely, and it's certainly something that we'll see a lot more about in the community over the next weeks and months here as we come closer to GA. But really a lot of great things around direct routing, being able to bring your own PSTN or trunks into the Microsoft Teams backend that we'll talk a little bit about here today, with a lot of all these nice new features that are coming or recently GA'd as well. So with that, Daryl, one of the other things I thought would be useful to share with the community is two sort of islands, and I use that island term as in a sort of a meaningful way. But there's Skype for Business Server 2019 that is going through the process of becoming GA as we get into 2019, obviously. And then there's also the announcements around Microsoft Teams and the feature sets that have been added and GA'd just the week of Ignite. So first I wanted to talk a little bit about Skype for Business Server 2019. Really kind of four major features will be released in the GA version, and then some additional features in the future that Microsoft's committed to bring into the market. So the first one is sort of a philosophy of bringing the functionalities in Skype for Business, but also leveraging what exists in the cloud today. So things like cloud voicemail, the org auto attendant feature functionality, as well as something they call a call data connector. Really what these things are allowing you to do is to continue to deploy on-prem, but be able to leverage the cloud services that Microsoft's investing in, voicemail, auto attendant, and this new thing that I learned about called call data connector. And what that means for you, Daryl, I know that you passed deploying Skype for Business, it's been something, you have those hybrid environments, but the cloud data connector allows you to take the call quality statistics that happen on-prem and move them into the cloud. So now you have that single portal of Microsoft data and information there at your fingertips as an administrator. So I think that's pretty cool, and I think we both agree.
Oh, yeah.
In the past, that's been tough, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, just being able to get any kind of really great or better data inside CQD, the call quality dashboard, or maybe the latest enhancement, I guess we should say, of CQD, to be able to make the good, wise decisions about what's really happening with our calls, not just for reporting, because people need to report that from compliance, but from a help desk perspective, right? When people call in with potential issues, that way you have better information at your fingertips. So I'm very much in favor of enhancing that.
Mm-hmm. The other one, which is pretty cool, is the addition of, in the past, in the Skype for Business control panel, you were able to move a user from on-prem to Skype Online or vice versa. Now Microsoft is adding the ability to move from Skype Server directly to Teams. And this is a big one, right? Because in the past, you had to do sort of a process, go from Skype on-prem to Skype Online, then to Teams. So this new feature really helps to alleviate some of the pain points with that migration. Obviously, that's just moving the user. There's other things that need to happen beyond that, with policies and such as you get into that cloud environment. But certainly a really cool thing. The other thing worth noting about that particular feature, it's not just Microsoft saying you can go to the cloud and stay in the cloud. It's actually, you can actually revert a user back from Teams to Skype Server. So I was really happy to see that because, you might do a POC with users and then you want to move it back and, maybe the timelines don't work out, whatever that might be. So having the ability to go back and forth, not just one direction, is a home run in my opinion. So some good news there. Some of the things worth noting, though, that are leaving Skype for Business Server in the sense of they're not going to continue to develop in some certain areas and support certain things. The first one that they talked about was persistent chat, right? So the ability to have that functionality in the on-prem world. You can still have it with Skype Server 2019, but it's going to be using the old 2015 bits for the pChat server. So you can still support it, but I think we all know the elephant in the room here, Daryl, of why they're doing that, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure. It's like, that's what Teams is for, right? Teams already has persistent chat built into it. There's so many things Teams does. But if nothing else, if inside this focus of conversation, being able to persistently have all the conversation threads for when people join your organization to see what they talked about before they got there, that's where Teams is at.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously future looking, they're going to put their development cycles into Teams. And then as we talked about some of those new features, being able to leverage the cloud, and I talked about islands, having those abilities to sit side by side are certainly something that Microsoft's got a big focus in. A couple other things that are being removed. This one not as big, at least for me. XMPP Gateway support removed. I personally have never used it, but certainly something that exists in some unique environments with interoperating to other platforms. But maybe not something that's super used in the community. But there are some talks that if there is a need for that third parties can bring that solution to the market. The other one, which is near and dear to AudioCodes, is the support of SBAs. Similar to persistent chat, you can continue to use existing SBAs, the 2015 bits, in that environment. No problem with the coexistence from that perspective, just like in the past. But certainly worth noting that at least at this point, there's no new feature functionality coming to the SBAs, so we can continue to leverage what already exists. And then the two other ones, sort of the removing of support, if you will, is Inplace Upgrades. which I don't know that it's a huge issue. I've heard a lot of bad stories about in-place upgrades where things just, kind of didn't go too well. Other folks have had really good success with it. But also keep in mind that the server requirements are a bit different in
Right.
2019. So you might not be able to just use that same hardware. You might have to expand and things like that. So certainly something worth noting to you folks out there. I think we knew about that before Ignite, but certainly something worth hashing out again. The other one, and I know that in our days of deploying Link 2013 and beyond, previously, SQL mirroring was the way to go. That was kind of the go-to strategy as far as deploying SQL for the back end. SQL mirroring is no longer supported. Not really a surprise. That announcement came out some time ago as well. But using SQL always on is really the future for Skype Server. So those are just some of the things that are being removed. But the other thing that they did in that session, if you haven't watched it, is they talked about some of the features that are coming to Skype Server 2019 after GA, right? So those, not only are they coming out with this new version, but they're also going to be coming out with all those CUs to continue to add more functionality. So it's not just, hey, here's Skype Server 2019, take it or leave it. It's, hey, they're actually developing on this stuff, which is really good to hear for the community because, Teams is something that we hear quite a bit about. So Daryl, this one's going to bring a smile to your face. The STIFA util is coming into an integrated PowerShell mechanism for Skype Server 2019. No more, Daryl, trusted applications and all that good stuff that we suffered through.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, just a quick update for those that aren't familiar with STIFA util. It was a collection of enhanced administrative functions. So if you were trying to move a customer, if you as a customer were considering moving from a more PBX-centric environment, group call pickups, pods, being able to centrally control address lists and centrally control a lot of things that Microsoft has put in the end user environment, but maybe you want to protect your end users from themselves, right? There was this whole utility called SEFA, S-E-F-A, that you could use, and now bringing this inside PowerShell, super, super powerful. Right now, your administrators don't have to learn a new set of applications. They can use their PowerShell environment and script it that way, right? It's such a great announcement.
And hopefully it actually works this time too, right?
Exactly.
That's the other thing. The other one, also going to bring a smile to everybody's face, is the removing of the Skype server control panel requiring Silverlight. It's moving to HTML5. I mean, yes, no big deal, right? It's just another thing, but Silverlight was just kind of frustrating, to say the least. To get installed, you had to have your server connected to the internet to download it, or you had to have the install file, whatever it might be, do the updates, so on and so forth. Now we're doing HTML5. It's time to sort of modernize that. So Microsoft has heard the feedback on that one. They've come through. So look forward to seeing that HTML control panel in the upcoming months after the GA of Server 2019. So certainly excited about that. The other thing is, again, going off of the ability to leverage cloud services, is the ability to do your meetings in the cloud. So instead of having all those resources and horsepower on-prem to support these types of meetings that we're having here, obviously this is on Teams, but say we were Skype Server and doing all that takes a lot of resources. So moving that into the cloud really is going to help to alleviate some of the the abilities to scale on-prem. The other one is also adding the feature functionality to support cloud call queues. So as we mentioned before, cloud voicemail is going to be a thing that doesn't have all these integrated things like auto attendant and other things that maybe UM had in the past, which is okay because now there's these other services that can help make that happen. So call queues is certainly something that will be added as well. So a lot of really good things that came out of that session. I'm super excited about it. It's great to see Microsoft investing in Skype Server like they've mentioned in the past, but having seen this session, it really shows that not only are they just coming out with a new version, with the 2019 slapped at the end, but it's actually new feature functionality and a lot of great things. So super excited about that. So that other island we talked about is Teams. And I know for you, and I, we use Teams all the time, but there were some really cool GA announcements at Ignite about some of these features that we've been talking about for some time. So if you don't mind, Darryl, can you kind of give us a little bit of insight into what some of those features are?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's interesting. I lived a large portion of my career on-prem, right, like everybody else, and then we started shifting to cloud services years ago. Teams got me excited when I first saw the public preview of it. However many was that? Almost 2 years ago now. So I've been interested watching the features grow and grow and grow. And you know, an advantage that, you know, Mike, you and I have is sometimes we get a chance to get a sneak preview of some of these features. So the blur between, what is happening in GA versus what's in preview sometimes gets a little fuzzy. But blur is a great example, you know, background blurring of your meeting. So right now inside this meeting, to be able to shift our background, maybe we should just demonstrate it, right? So I can click this button right here and blur my background. So now you can't see all that shenanigans going on behind me. You know, and you know, Mike, you can do the same type of thing. But that background blur feature set being GA is really a big deal. If you want to protect what's happening behind you. But the example Microsoft gave, it was really funny. They took that video that went viral a couple years ago about the BBC reporter working from home, and his child walks in behind him, and then, you know, his wife brings the child back out, and it was kind of like an awkward moment on TV. So being able to use background blur would really have helped with that situation, at least for the far end, not seeing what happened.
Yeah.
But getting that GA is really great, you know, for meeting invites, right? To watch out the noise behind you. Mm-hmm. So meeting recording, right? We use meeting recording right now. That's how we're recording this exact Clouducation episode. We're using the meeting recording feature. But even internally at AudioCodes, and I know many of you that have had a chance to do this at preview, you can record meetings, send it into Microsoft Stream with annotation. So later on, you can go to find a really important meeting that you know you talked about, you know, widget ABC. So you can search and go to the exact spot that widget ABC was discussed in the recording. But of course, then have it available in Stream for everybody in your organization. Nice to see that GA. That's gotten a lot of buzz, you know, I know in the market.
It's great.
For sure. You know, on the cloud video interop side, you know, our friends at BlueJeans and PexZip have really gone GA with some functions to be able to bring in your on-premises VTC. I hate using that word, but whatever on-premises video technology you might be using, and integrate that inside Microsoft Teams and marry the two. So I know that very specifically was talked about at Enterprise Connect in the spring, but then to be able to now announce that as GA at Ignite, I know has been really good for the market because not everybody can go all cloud. And they might have a large investment, but lots of dollars invested in their on-premises environment.
And that stuff is not always very cheap. So there's quite investment in that equipment. So that's great to see.
Yeah, a couple things that they announced around, you know, frontline workers being able to bring in. I know that's not a thing that we use at AudioCodes very much, but definitely at certain segments, being able to now take in managing schedules and managing time off and managing certain things around employee life cycle. Instead of having separate applications for that, now bring that under the Teams umbrella. To have that single pane of glass, that costs me $0.25 every time I say it. But to have that single pane of glass to manage your team, your frontline worker. A couple of things from a management perspective that I'm really excited about, right? The Graph API, if you think of that as Microsoft's larger collection or larger set of APIs that people can tap into to extend Teams. There was more announcements around the Graph API around calling and meeting and management, which leads us well into the fact that inside the admin center, inside Office 365, you can manage your individual teams. That's a big deal. So when you're managing inside the admin center, you don't have to rely on PowerShell or go to a separate place to manage your teams. You can do that straight from that same admin console, including things like templates. So if we know we need to create maybe project-based teams that have similar sets of channels or similar sets of connectors or similar sets of baseline information, we can create a template for that. Now spawn different teams.
Yeah, because you can have, you know, in Teams, you can have these different sort of bots and things like that running. So as opposed to having that bot activated over here and somebody having to manually go in and change that on a new team, now you have these templates. So when you create them, it automatically generates, you know, all that information, which is super helpful. And, you know, at least from an administrator perspective and, you know, helping those managers to not spend too much time on that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And very specifically, I know that, Mike, you and I on one of our teams, we use a kind of like a reminder bot that we can, put a certain keystroke in to remind us when certain topics come up to play, or if we have a very time sensitive environment. But that's not on all of our teams. So being able to add something like that to all of our teams would be a great example of the use of being able to use templates. Another one that really kind of hit home for me that I know is probably going to be good for you as well, Mike, that I know that your customers have been asking for is creating teams from dynamic groups.
Yes.
Instead of having to manually create teams and add members, now I can use Azure AD and utilize modern Office 365 groups. So when new people are hired, they're automatically added to teams. And then when they maybe transfer roles or maybe offboard the team, all I do is adjust that through my process in Azure AD, and then my team's security is managed from that. It's such a welcome enhancement of managing a team.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's helpful because, like you said, the dynamic part about groups and managing things, leveraging AD to make those decisions, super helpful. But it's really big for those scenarios where you have maybe like an HR channel or like a corporate notification team or something like that, where you want to have certain people or certain regions in the world have access to that. So right now, you're going about that process, and I'm having to say, "Oh, Daryl, you need to be part of this team. Let me add you." Or, "Hey, admin of this team, can you add Daryl?"
Right.
As opposed to that, now you're automatically there. So that's super helpful. It really clears up a lot of the stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure. And the last thing I want to mention that was announced from a management perspective is that the role-based controls, RBAC, that's a generic term, has increased the team's admin control. They've added 4 new roles to be able to manage teams around administration and frontline support and engineering. And it's just great to see that teams, obviously as a GA product, that Microsoft has recognized the need to now have more granular control around the product. Because what they say at Ignite, like 400,000 organizations are using Teams, or some unreal number, maybe not quite 400, but some unreal number of organizations. So as it's grown from a groundswell of preview into like being part of the daily use for people like us, being able to have more admin controls and more governance controls behind it is just a natural transition of a product, and it's good to see.
Yeah, it's great. And, it's interesting because we were talking about, it's like, wow, these are really cool features, but, you kind of expect these things at this point as, in an enterprise solution. These are just kind of the things that you just expect, right? So it's not the old, hey, here's this awesome new set of features. We've really gotten to that more of a run state of Teams where ultimately it's pretty well baked. Now it's just, getting those little bits and pieces together to really make this a true enterprise ready solution, which it is, but even, enhancing that experience. So a lot of good things that came out of that conference down in Orlando, for sure. So with that, we wanted to thank you guys for your time today. Hope you guys learned a little bit insight into what happened down in Orlando at Ignite 2018. If you haven't, again, I highly recommend go search in the My Ignite site. All the links to YouTube, the recordings and the slides are all there. So if you haven't done that, please do so. And certainly if you have any questions about particular topics, Daryl and I are here to help out, and certainly looking forward to chatting with you guys next time. So with that, thank you, Daryl.
You bet.
We'll chat with you guys next time. Thanks, and so long.
Yeah, bye-bye.